Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Jay and Mike. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey. We got a lot to talk about today.
We sure do.
Yeah, so generally this would have been our hobby podcast that Kyle and I would have handled hobby, but we have a lot of breaking news and new things released, and so we decided to turn this into a competitive podcast. And I know what you guys are thinking. Normally, Jay, you wouldn't be here for the competitive, but this particular competitive conversation turns out to be right up my alley, so I'm gonna be here for this one.
You could say we've got a storm of news, a monsoon of news, perhaps, maybe a hurricane.
You're looking at thesaurus.com.
No, it's just all from my head, Jay.
Just all from
You sure it isn't like a tropical storm?
So some cumulus clouds rolling in.
A deluge,
derecho, maybe.
Yeah. There's a lot of weather-related battle forces, isn't there?
Well, there's
I
at least
guess we
one
haven't
more.
said blizzard yet, right?
Yeah.
And that's true. Yeah. And it's another empire.
Yep.
Another Empire Battle Force with a weather-related name that heavily features ATSTs and bikes. Yeah, all right. So we are going to talk about Tempest Force today. That the rules for that were previewed on Friday, I think.
Yeah, right during my live stream of the unboxings of Ewoks.
Of Ewoks, yeah.
Yeah, and people were like, "Hey, Jay, have you seen this? I think you're going to like this way more than Ewoks." I was like, I haven't seen it, and I went over to it right in the middle of the live stream.
Yep.
Preview of conversations to come here, folks.
Yep. All right. How about we, before we get into the nitty gritty, how about we do some housekeeping?
Housekeeping.
Okay, yeah. So a couple things, as you guys know, Patreon. I'm actually going to be putting up a poll on our Patreon Discord here this week, hopefully. And I'm gonna give people options of what they want for their Patreon award, and one of them is going to be these new cards that we got, since they're print and play. So that's one of the things. I'm gonna do that, and probably some of the errata cards, and people can decide what they want to get for their reward. So that'll be this week. So if you want to become a Patreon member, just come to support all these casts in the blog, but we also, when I get around to it, send out cool stuff to you. So we sent out tote bags, like these really nice tote bags to like carry your gear and stuff to events, and I had like a third party doing the print, and like two or three of them, like the logo came upside down. I was like, oh no. But the people were like, no, this is awesome. This is like a one of a kind. I go, well, it's two of a kind, but yeah, sure. That's
some misprint and magic.
Yeah. So that's all you, buddy. I'm glad you're happy. But yeah, we do all kinds of cool things. So plus you get access to all of us, and we're all very active in the Discord server, and talking to you about your lists and ideas and hobby and all kinds of stuff. So come join us. And then in addition, if you're into Shatterpoint, our boy Mike here, joined with Evan the Raccoon, have started a Shatterpoint podcast. We just released episode 2 this week. They're doing a great job over there, really deep diving into Shatterpoint. So please give that a listen. The first episode, they did a lot of like intro to Shatterpoint. This one, they deep dived into CIS and covered some of the new news. So check that out. Other than that, I think that's good for hobby. We could just go right into it.
For housekeeping.
Or housekeeping. What did I say? Hobby?
You did.
I've literally been working on Ewoks all weekend. So I'm like deep into the hobby, and probably for nothing now.
I've been working on this boy.
He's been yub-nubbing so much. He
got some
interchanges words that start with H.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll do it during our hobby podcast, but I'm like custom building bases for them, and like I sculpted hand sculpted out of clay a cauldron for Logray for him to sit in front of. I was so excited.
They look really cool. I am excited for people to get to see the stuff you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. It's feels pointless now, but
Well,
I've been doing
You're
it.
burying the lead here, Jay.
All right, how about we hit?
Let's just go.
Yeah, let's hit the news.
Welcome to In the News.
All right, so Tempest Force arrived,
Yep.
like a weather event,
Yep.
on Friday, and people have been talking about it obviously all weekend. It's I think at first there was some feeling like, how are they going to make this different than Blizzard Force? But it's actually pretty different.
Yeah.
Significantly different, I think,
Yeah.
to say the least.
No, it's different.
Are we going through and like spelling out the rules here, or are we just
let's
Okay.
Why don't we do that, and then we can talk about our takes
All
on
right.
it.
Well, I'll do this. Boom, boom, boom. Hold on. I'm doing it. Wait, I'm doing it. I promise. Sure. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
All right.
All
Yeah,
right,
we can.
there we go. Look at that, Battle Force rules.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so Tempest Force, right?
yeah.
It's part of the
Yeah.
Galactic Empire faction.
This is the third Battle Force for Empire.
Well, because Empire's clearly the best faction.
the third
Don't you
Battle
guys
Force.
know?
They've got Blizzard,
Remnant, and
Remnant,
this.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I mean,
I know
Can-
people have been like rich get richer, but whatever. It's
yeah, I don't really have a strict issue with that overall. I do. I mean, we can talk about it later. Yeah, let's talk about the rules, and then we can
okay.
get into the takes.
All right.
So the first rule is that a Tempest Battleforce is part of the Galactic Empire faction. Let's start right there.
Jay clearly wasn't listening to me 2 seconds ago.
No, I was. I just want to reiterate.
Okay. All
Just,
right.
Yeah, just wants to poke a little bit.
Highlight it with yellow.
All right.
Vehicles in this army gain Scout 2.
That's really far for a speeder biker and ATST.
It's so
It is. I think the big thing here is with this specifically is that it's kind of like you get the rollout text on every other deployment. And it's a little bit farther.
It's farther than
It's
that.
far.
Yeah.
It's farther.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but and you get this text in addition to the rollout.
It's like
text
rollout on
the
steroids.
rollout.
Yeah.
Yeah, rollout. It's basically just like deploy in your enemy's deployment zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Continue.
Units that are not in command range of a friendly commander unit and do not have a comms upgrade equipped remove one less suppression during the remove token step. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
This
don't know
is a-
how reliant you're going to be on troopers anyway,
Yeah. I
but
don't.
you can also just take a commander, which is a pretty useful unit in this battle force regardless. So, all right. Yeah. Doesn't seem nearly as like debilitating as the Ewok version of this, that there's literally no way to prevent happening.
It's
don't-
like
I don't think
And
the
is a
Ewok-
trooper-based list.
I don't think the Ewok version of it is actually bad. Maybe that's a hot take, but I actually think it synergizes very well with what that faction is doing.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they have access to, I think it's sort of like AI, and that the way that it is restrictive applies primarily to list building and then positioning
Yeah, 100%.
on the table. Because you need to keep your dudes within compel range of 3PO, and you need to have Logray for that Courage 3.
Yeah.
And then you need some Inspire, which is going to be Logray and Leia and probably Chewie. So it forces you into like certain lanes, I think is probably what it does mostly. It's just weird that this one is like, that one it's like take 3PO and take Logray and take Leia to mitigate that, and this one is like, oh, just take an officer, I guess, and then
Yeah.
it literally doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all the lists I've seen so far of Tempest Force, this bullet point doesn't even feel like it
No, I
exists.
know it's right because it's not a trooper based list anyway.
Yeah.
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 Right.
It just feels like I don't know. It just feels like, I hate to say this, but it probably wasn't this, but it feels like an afterthought of how do we tame this list, and that was what they came up with, and it was just like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. But then you have this. During setup at the start of the deploy unit steps, you may set aside one friendly special forces or support unit, marking the unit with a condition token. When you draw an order token with the rank that matches a friendly set aside unit, if you cannot choose a unit on the battlefield with the matching rank, you must place that set aside unit onto the battlefield beyond range 2 of all enemy units if able. That unit is treated as activated. So it's basically rapid reinforcements, a modification of that.
Yeah, it's free rapid reinforcements all the time, basically.
I love this. I think it's
On-
really cool.
On good units.
I agree. Yeah.
And I actually, yeah, I think this is great.
I think this is neat in that, like, I mean, we've seen other battle forces get kind of like quote unquote army wide special rules, but I think it's both this and the Scout 2. Really, I have other concerns about the Scout 2.
I think
separate
we
and
all
apart from
do,
this, but
we'll talk about it.
you know,
I don't.
right. You're taking I like that it's taking like effects that just kind of already exist in the game as building blocks and then just applying them in ways that are different. Yeah, I like that rather than just coming up with random new rules text that does something completely new. Like,
yeah,
this does something new simply because it's something taken out of its normal context and applied differently as an army-wide special rule. So
so anyways, so army building allowed units, you can only have an imperial officer as your commander. Special forces, you can have scout troopers but no strike teams. Core units, stormtroopers. Support, Z74Z speeder bikes, heavies, ATST, and Major Marquand, and unique upgrades, none. That Major Marquand thing has been very confusing throughout the sphere of Legion content. So we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, people look, who is that? How do I get him? Well, you just turn to the next page. So rank requirements for commanders, you must include 1 to 2 commander units. Special forces must include 2 to 6 special forces. Core, each army must include 1 to 3 core units. Oh, thank God. I hate core units. Support, each army may include up to 3 support units. And heavy, each army may include up to 3 heavy units. This
said like a true Civil War player.
Yeah. I hate core units. We had a whole podcast about this last week, and a bunch of people reached out to me and said that AMG must have been listening to that podcast because they're like, boy, every time Jay asks for something, we sure do get it. And here it is.
Well, gee whiz, let me write up my Christmas list and I'll have you talk about it.
And I'll talk about it passionately, I promise.
yeah, I mean, basically you're replacing your normal core unit requirement with scouts.
Yeah,
because you need to take 2 to 6 scouts.
Yep.
And
yeah, I mean,
at
maybe
least 1 stormtrooper. Well, not maybe. It's mandatory that you take 2 scouts.
2,
so, yeah, you have to take, at minimum, you got to take a stormtrooper and you got to take 2 scouts.
Yeah.
So
fine by me.
This might be, I think, the most restrictive battle force we've seen yet, as far as like there's basically 1 unit in each like rank that you can actually take. And that's it.
Yeah, 501st is close, although 501st has more than 1 character available.
Yeah, it's got 3 different commander options technically.
Right, but like every other slot is basically
you can take strike teams.
That's true.
Yeah, and you can take ATRTs and barks or barks.
AT what now? Is this a new unit? That
You haven't heard of these, Kyle?
Yeah.
Good.
I see you're enjoying the drawing.
The drawing functionality.
Yeah.
Watch out, guys.
Jay, happy.
Yep.
All right. Before we talk about the 3 heavy units, because I feel like we're gonna have a lot to say on that subject. Why don't we hit the command cards that you get with this?
All right. I mean, all right. if that's what you want to do.
I mean, you should still be excited about these command cards, Jay,
No, I am.
'cause they're very good.
But in
At least some of
relation
them are very good,
to that
yeah.
other thing,
Yeah.
go ahead, Kyle. Why don't you read one? I'm kind of done reading.
All right. Drive them out. Displaying a very lovely art here of
Yeah.
ATSTs destroying Bright True Village, it looks like.
Yeah.
I feel like the comment you just displayed there is basically, you could say that about any of these 6 cards.
Yeah.
And the Battleforce generally. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for now, we're going to talk about these cards. Friendly vehicles gain Demoralize 1 this round. The first time a friendly vehicle with the face-up order token displaces an enemy unit during its activation, roll a white defense die for each miniature in the enemy unit. For every surge or block result, the enemy suffers 1 wound. So this is basically like every vehicle has Reckless Driver for a round plus Demoralize. Although Reckless Driver only wounds on blocks, right?
I was gonna say, I think this is more like being able to Vader's Might
yes.
a unit as far with just the damage component,
right? But still, like you can easily make. I mean, this applies to speeder bikes too. You can easily make a list that has like 2 ATSTs and 3 speeder bikes in it, and be doing this 5 times in a turn.
So
I don't know if it's great.
I don't.
But it's a lot of displacing, which
I don't actually read that like that. I don't know if they've like come out with an FAQ. The way this reads, I only think this happens once.
Literally just 1 time.
It says this round, the first time a friendly vehicle with a face-up order token displaces an enemy unit during its activation. That's the first time a friendly vehicle with a face-up order token. Like that only happens once.
Unless you have HQ uplink.
No, I mean like you the next time you activate a friendly vehicle will be the second time you activate a friendly vehicle with a face-up order token displaces something.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the language here is almost identical to Reckless Driver.
Yeah, that's possible. I see
how you're reading
some
it, though.
ambiguity.
Yeah.
But and obviously the card only issues 1 order. So I guess the only way you're going to get this is with HQ uplink, or I guess Mark Juan's got direct. So
well, there's no face-up requirement on the damage effect, or really the Demoralize. There's actually the face-up.
I mean the face-up.
Anything.
You have to have a face-up when you displace.
Oh yeah. It's the Demoralize that doesn't require.
Yeah. So I do think at a bare minimum we're probably going to need some clarification on this card, but the way I read this is that this only happens once, no matter how many order tokens you have. It's possible that's not how it works, but that's definitely how I read it.
Yeah, I guess I read it the other way, where I guess the cost of that would be like an HQ uplink or some sort of like getting other units face-up order tokens so that you can do it multiple times, right?
Direct on Mark.
Oh yeah, direct, right? Yeah, he has it
Farquhar,
too.
Lord Farquhar.
Lord Farquaad. Okay. That's pretty good.
I mean, that's a pretty good effect.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, either way, I mean, it's solid.
Right. Yeah. We need reinforcements, 2 pip. Friendly units that have a face-up order token gain disengage this round, 2 troopers.
Yeah.
Seems pretty good in like a scout spam list, I guess.
Sure. If you're wasting this beautiful battle force for scouts, then sure.
I think there's some pretty good scout lists you can make, but we'll get to that.
I think there is too. I also think I don't know. The way I'm feeling about this is that the troopers that you can take in this list, the things that they're going to be wanting to disengage from probably have already killed them because they don't have great defenses against whatever they're fighting. So I don't know how good this card. This is probably the mellowest card in here for me.
And it's the same slot as Pin Down, which
Which
you're
is
obviously taking over this.
Yeah.
So
all day long.
Yeah. You're right. I think it's rare that you would actually take this, but
yeah, and I guess all I'm trying to say with that is I think not only is it rare you're going to take it, I think it's also rare that this is actually going to be actively useful.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, disengage is a good effect. But
it's a tremendously amazing effect.
But if you're using it on scouts that are in melee with something, unless it's like a weird, KP tying up units at the end of the game, getting meleeed by stuff that's not attacking them kind of situation.
Totally.
If they get charged by a force user,
They're just
they're just gonna die. So, all right, constantly alert. 3 units. When a unit is issued an order with this card, it gains 1 aim token for each enemy unit at range 1. If it did not get any aim tokens, it gains a standby token.
It's so good. It's so good. Oh, I love that card.
More unstrippable standbys if you give these to ATSTs.
Yep.
Because we needed more of those, I guess. I mean, it's interesting that it's like a range limitation on this. I guess the counter to this is to get like right next to the ATST.
well, it is definitely interesting. I think in the primary mode for ATSTs in these lists seems to be to load them out with the grenade launcher and not much else.
Yep.
Which and their standby range is obviously only range 2, so it kind of incentivizes you to just, if you're in the range 2 band already, you can move backwards and not trigger the standby, right?
Yes.
In theory.
I mean, there are ways that, like, I mean, think of what's one of the most common armor counters right now. It's saber throw, right?
Yeah.
And this is like a perfect counter to an Anakin saber throw fire sport, because if Anakin wants to move within range 2 to saber throw any of your ATSTs, he's going to trigger one of or more of those standbys. So
that is very true.
Well, and I would say, but on both sides, right? So with the ATST, in my experience, there's this action economy question that you're always having with ATSTs and wondering if your opponent's going to end up moving their stuff within range. So do I take a standby and an aim, or and hope that they move in, or do I give them an order and have link targeting array on them, give them the aim, and then hold until I can't possibly hold anymore? And I think this kind of answers some of those questions for you. Like either way, like if you get the aim, then you're kind of stacking some aims so that you're going to be able to have some more choices as you move through the round, which I think is good.
I mean, this card's busted.
Yeah.
it's super good.
Yeah, I mean, busted might be a bit hyperbolic, but
no, it's fine.
This is a very large reason as to why this list is gonna be good.
I think this is the only card besides Lando's 2-pip that is able to give a standby token to a vehicle.
Outside of the invasion force, yeah. I mean, you obviously
the invasion force 1-pip, but... yeah. But so I guess there's 2 other cards that do that, but both of those other cards only give out 1 standby.
Yes.
This one gives out 3.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
And
then of course you have Echo Base, which gives out potentially like 6, but that's to MK2s and FD turrets, which are like
don't have 8
not ATSTs. Yeah.
that also probably have LTA backup,
which is a completely different thing.
Yep. Also a very good card, by the way. Hold the line. Hold at any cost. That's also a super good card, even though you're only giving standbys to MK2s and FD turrets. But
there's a bunch of aim tokens that hints out on that.
Yes,
that card would be good if it was just the aim tokens.
Yes, you also get like potentially 6 free aim tokens or something.
Yeah.
Depending on how many core units you have, but yes.
So before we move on to Lord Farquaad, I have a question.
Yeah, fire away.
The way this is worded, it must include 1 commander. Does he count as that commander? I don't think he does he? Because a field commander
negates the minimum requirements on commander rank.
All right, I just wanted to make sure. All right.
Yeah. I know people have brought that up before. Part of the reason that this is slightly confusing is that pretty much every other battle force says that you may not use field commander to negate the commander rank, and this one does not. So, that
would be crazy.
It seems pretty clear that this battle force is intended to be led by Major Marquand.
Correct.
Right. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. I would be incredibly surprised if we had some clarification in the next couple weeks that was like, you have to take an officer. That seems crazy to me.
I've seen
Yeah.
crazier things happen, Mike.
I have to.
Just
but
want
I
to
would
make
be-
sure.
I would be very surprised.
All right. All right. Do we want to cover his unit card first or his command cards first? Probably unit card it then to command cards, right? Or command cards to unit card.
We can do it however you want, Jay.
However I want.
Yep,
Yeah.
your choice.
Hear that, Kyle? You're not in charge anymore. Woohoo! This is Jay's show. ATSTs. ATSTs. All right, let's do his card first. So old Major Marquand. So it's 190 points. He's got armor, arsenal 2, direct vehicle, which is chef's kiss.
That's very good. Yeah.
Field commander, weak point, rear 1, and he has the special issue of Tempest Force, 11 health, 8 vehicle damage. He's damage threshold. He surges to hit and surges to block. He's got the grenade launcher, the twin light blaster, and the twin blaster cannon.
Yeah.
Very similar to Chewbacca's card.
Yeah, and like Chewie, he can fire the grenade launcher and the twin light blaster in melee.
Yep.
Which is probably just because they couldn't fit the fence blades on this card.
Yep.
That's fair.
It's functionally a very similar dice pool as the fence cutting blades, which I think is
Mhm.
4 red. So, yeah, the melee thing, that's interesting, I guess, but not really that different from a normal ATSD.
Yeah, I do
Um,
think the primary difference here is that an ST loaded out with basically the same guns and the Hammer's pilot, which allows you to surge to hit, is 183 as opposed to the 190 here. And I feel sort of like you're intrinsically playing that 7 extra points for field commander, the command cards, and direct.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
The one drawback I think here is that there's no comm slot for link targeting array.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
definitely it. Yes.
I'm gonna argue. Listen, as much as I would like that, it's probably a good thing.
Oh, 100% agree.
Yeah,
I think if that's a balance choice, that's a great choice.
Yeah, yeah.
I also think, by the way, people have been like, "Hey, where's Iden in this battle force?" I think whether it's a balance choice or a theme choice, I don't care. I think that's a great choice for not allowing this.
But you don't want to
battle
play
force
against 7 sniper lists.
No thanks.
Okay.
Or 3 ATSCs backed up by Iden and Inferno. Also
Yeah.
no thanks.
Well,
Man, you got to put that Delmica repair to work, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I think people, it would have been a different battle force if she was included in it. It couldn't be this battle force because that would be crazy.
I mean, it
Well, and
could have been.
even thematically, I mean, like I know that she was on Endor
Yeah.
during the Battle of Endor. But
Not
it,
in a
it
movie,
wasn't-
she wasn't.
Well, and more specifically, like she wasn't engaging Wookiees,
Right.
really, or not Wookiees, Ewoks.
Ewoks. Yeah.
Neither. She was engaging neither Ewoks nor Wookiees.
She saw no furry animals.
Yeah, so she was not involved in the actual battle for the bunker, which seems like what these two battle forces are centered around. So there's a thematic justification for that. Even if it's a thin justification, I think it's good because otherwise this would be, I mean, I think we'll get there, but I does not need to be in this battle force. Let's put it that way. Yeah. I mean, link targeting array is the primary drawback, I think, but that's more than made up for the fact that you get direct vehicle and 3 command cards.
To me, there is a comm slot on this card. It's just direct vehicle. It's basically HQ uplink for another vehicle that you don't have to tap or recover.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is pretty great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yep. All right. You want to hit the command cards, Jay?
I sure do. Let's go with the 1 pip first. Gunner infantry! ! So this is ordered to Major Marquand. During his activation, he reduces his speed by 1 to a minimum of 1. He then gains tactical 1 this round, and his weapon gains suppressive this round. It's so good.
So I actually don't think this is very good.
I think you're wrong.
Here's why. I mean, okay, like it's fine. But this is, you get 1 aim from tactical because he doesn't get steady, right? This isn't tactical strike.
Right.
So you get 1 move at speed 1 and then you can attack.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially this is a free aim and your weapons gain suppressive. That's the text of this card.
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. I mean, it's a 1-pip, so like it doesn't have to have a strong text effect. But
I mean, it is. I actually think it's less good than that because reducing your speed by 1 is a real cost. I think.
I mean, when you can scout 2 at the beginning of the,
No doubt, no doubt.
Here's what I think you guys are missing. As someone who has played heavies a lot, by the time I would get to this card, shit's already going down, right? Like I'm already deep in, and having an opportunity to be able, because by the time I'm playing this, it's probably round 4 or 5. And I'm already trying to get that center KP, or I'm already trying to break through, and I'm trying to hold my lines and hold what I have at that point. So being able to effectively have 3 actions and to potentially deny actions or something else from another unit all with 1 card. I mean, I think this is huge for this is a huge late game boon, especially with direct. I mean, because now I have a 1-pip that gives 2 ATSTs. So if I put, which I'm going to, I would put Link Targeting Ray on my other ATST. And so now I have 2 ATSTs with aims, movement, and he's got suppressive, and I'm probably have the mortar launcher on the other one. So, I mean, it just gives me a lot more flexibility late game. I think it's a much bigger deal than you're probably thinking, just because of the placement in a late game opportunities.
I will give you that if this card is good, it is because of the suppressive effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I agree. Otherwise, it's a 1-turn replacement for the fact that he can't take Link Targeting Array. Basically,
Yeah. No, the suppressive is what absolutely makes the card, but it's giving you effectively 3 actions and potentially denying actions from another unit, which that I think that's big for when you're going to use this.
And frankly, the 1-pip slot, like in a list that features Major Marquand, like your other option is Ambush. So you're gonna have the drive them out, and then you're gonna have this one. So it's it's Ambush with a little bit of extra free text, which is fine.
Yep.
I really feel like you're downplaying this. We'll play.
This is definitely not in the conversation for the best card here.
No.
Okay. I just want to be clear. You're just talking about it like
it's like Ambush, but just a little bit better. I think is definitely downplaying what it.
I agree with that assessment.
Okay.
I agree. It is a little bit better than Ambush in the same way that like the mercenary 2 and 3 pips are like a little bit better than Push and Assault.
Yeah, like it's not covert observation.
Yeah.
Like it has an actual good text effect on it. But it's not like a game-changing text effect.
Well, okay. Yeah. You're just talking about it like it's not going to matter. And I'm going to show you that it's going to matter, and you guys are going to be real sad.
I think it's a perfectly solid card, Jay.
I agree.
It's a solid C+.
Above average.
Yeah.
Slightly above average.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's move on.
2-pip Squadron on me. Just orders to him again. At the start of his activation, each other friendly vehicle unit at range 1 of him may perform a free pivot. Then they may make a speed 1 move. I love this card too.
There's lots of displacing happening with Tempest Force.
Yeah. Conversely, this card's like an A.
This is a very good card.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this is, you can do this with speeder bikes. You can do this with the other ATSTs in your list. So
there's very few out of sequence move effects in this game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Particularly ones that you can interrupt mid-turn with. Like most of the effects that give you free moves are command phase. And that is not what this is. This is you can kind of choose when you want to do it over the course of the turn. I imagine what you're going to do with this generally will be sort of telegraphed if your opponent, like there's probably going to be a clear thing you can do with this, I suspect, as far as like where you want the vehicles to end up. But you definitely can do some like weird I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think it just makes me feel like when I'm reading these, like that they were definitely playing vehicles when they created these, because there's a lot of stuff, especially like, again, I'll talk to this because especially late game, your choices and your options start to dwindle as your opponent moves up and starts pulling, pushing onto the objectives. And so, like, the beginning of the game, for new people to this, heavies are really great for area control, keeping your opponent like to stay back a couple rounds before they start pushing up, because generally you're giving your heavies orders and you're waiting and you're trying to go last with them, which scares your opponent off of certain things. And then what happens is, as your command pool dwindles and as you're heading towards the late game, your choices start to shrink. Pin down is really one of your best kind of like turn 3-4 option, to kind of hold people off of objectives. And then once you kind of blow that, like, you really didn't have much else in the 1 pip 2 pip area that was like supporting what you were trying to do. And so, like, that's what's the most exciting about this. And like, oh man, now I've got a bunch of more options, and that, like, now my turn 4 through 6 is going to be a lot stronger, because these are adding actions to my ATSTs that they wouldn't normally have. And anybody who's played heavies knows by like turn 5 or 6, especially when you're only playing one, they're usually, if people have been focusing down on them, they're pretty heavy on wounds. They've probably already hit their resilience, and you're struggling to get anything going with them, if your opponent played right. And so, like, turn like 5 and 6, they're really not doing much, and they become less effective over time. And I think that this kind of just pushes them up, to a late game all-star now, where before they were just kind of like, they really shined like rounds 1 through 3.
Yeah, I mean, these command cards definitely give you pretty significant flexibility, as long as Major Marquand is not the first ATST they kill.
Yeah, which would be, if I'm playing against a multiple ATST list on Tempest, he's going to be the first one I'm shooting at.
I mean, yeah, and good luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ATST. So,
yeah.
It's
right. Like one of those things, you're partially upset when it happens, but you're not very upset, because you're like, okay, they had to do a lot to even make that happen. Like that took, either you had to use like a good portion of your army to like really make that happen, which was wasted on that while I'm positioning with the rest of my army, and sometimes by the time you take down an ATST, the rest of your army's already been positioned and it's too late to like,
it's a lot of work to kill an ATST.
It's quicksand sometimes. Yeah. Okay, so the 3rd pip, Armored Cavalry, 3 vehicles. When another friendly vehicle begins its activation at range 1 of the major, it may choose one of the following effects. If it's in its front arc, it may gain a dodge. If it's in its side arc, it may gain an aim. If it's in its rear arc, it may perform a speed 1 move. So good. Just creating a conga line to like a horizontal line across the battlefield of ATSTs with potentially 2 to 3 aims by the time they even decide to shoot you.
Or bikes. This works on bikes too.
Bikes too. Sorry, I'm only thinking of
I know
ATSTs, but yes.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I do think it's neat on this card that they have like different options for where they are in the arcs relative to Marquand. I think that's cool. I think most of the time you're probably going to want the aim tokens.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to position your vehicles to be in the right spots for that. But
but you could see a potential, like, let's say you had speeder bikes and maybe you got them in a little bit more trouble than you thought you were going to. You move him up, put him in the front arc. Now they got dodges.
Yep. The dodges on ATSTs are not usually.
That seems really bad.
They're usually pretty redundant with armor.
It's not a requirement. I think.
But dodges on speeder bikes are amazing. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is probably like a turn 2, maybe turn 3 card. And it might depend on what you're doing, but it could be to move the ATSTs up to do some area control if you're holding them back. But it's most likely going to be, if you're having ATSTs, you got your horizontal line and you're just getting everybody aims to like punish your opponent in that like 3-4 range to whatever they're trying to do to start moving towards the objective.
I feel like this is the most likely candidate to be your turn 1 play.
Yeah,
I think
especially
just
if
from
you can get super close, which you can.
yeah,
So.
yeah. You're like scout 2, you've got 3 ATSDs just basically already
Yeah.
in firing range, and you know, a couple of them have LTAs. I do think the 3 vehicle text on this card is a little weird to me in that you're basically, because of direct vehicle, this card says 4 vehicles.
Yeah.
And unless you're running like only 1 ATST or 2, I guess like the 3 ATST list like definitely loses a little bit of value here.
I have a 3 ATST 2 speeder bike list.
How do you that
Really?
that fits?
Yeah.
Is it like 8 activations now?
It's and it's
Okay.
800 points, and it's a naked stormtrooper and 2 naked scouts. That's it.
Do the STs actually have guns on them?
Yeah, they have the mortars and link targeting array.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to get too many thumbs on objectives, but if you're dead, I guess it doesn't matter.
That is definitely what this list is doing.
Yeah.
Well, and you can make some, if you go heavier on the bikes, like I think you can fit 3 bikes into ATSTs, or 3 bikes, one, you know, the major, and then a bunch of troopers. Like you can make some objective focused Tempest decks also, because bikes are very good at objectives.
No, I yeah, for me, I don't
3
care about
ATSTs are pretty good at like the mobility objectives.
Yeah.
So
I guess for me, obviously don't care as much about the bikes as I do about the ATSTs.
Yeah, sure.
This is like my dream come true. And so which brings me, so we said all this positive stuff, right? So it's going to bring me to this topic,
And
which
here
is,
we go.
boy, they could not have squashed my childlike wonder and excitement harder for Ewoks than they did with this.
I'd like to, I'm going to be a voice of some optimism here, which is atypical. Sure. And I do want to just say that I think what the objective here, I think, was noble in that, and it was a good objective that they were headed towards. I think they missed the mark a little bit. I think the idea of a mirrored faction release that is heavily thematic, that you can play together in a game where you put Ewoks on the table and you put Tempest Force on the table, it looks like Star Wars. It looks really cool. I think releasing them at the same time is like a great idea from a just like what you're trying to achieve
from a thematic and a marketing perspective.
Absolutely. I think they nailed that. I think obviously we can, you know, there is some potential balance concerns.
Well, I mean, let's just talk about it, right? So the obvious problem here is that, particularly like a 3 ATSD list, but Tempest Force is like an extremely hard counter to a Bright True Village list.
Yeah.
Bright True Village, very specifically, and I think intentionally based on some interviews they've done about it, has trouble against armor. And even like a normal faction list where they can stack impact will have trouble against 3 ATSTs. So I don't know. It's it makes sense from a theme perspective, from a Return of the Jedi marketing perspective. It is it definitely potentially dampens the enthusiasm for Ewoks when you know, all the very nice, amazing looking Ewok models you're buying are like hard countered by this PDF that is coming out at the same time.
I think I don't really have an issue with the fact that it's a hard counter. I do have a little bit of an issue with like the timing. Like I wish people got to play with their cool Ewoks and like have it be kind of good before like any sort of counter came out. I do think that if we're talking about like the heat of the fastball that both of these battle forces are throwing, Ewoks are like lukewarm to maybe good, and this is red hot. And like to the point where like, I mean, obviously we haven't seen it shake out, but this could very well be better than Blizzard Force was, I think, at the height of Blizzard, frankly.
Yeah. And it's not the 3 Ewok or the 3 ATSTs, I think, that makes this list super powerful. I think similar to Blizzard Force, there's a ton of options within it, and I think it probably has 2 or 3 lists that are pretty good in the one battle force.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think like 6 snipers could also be a thing that's really annoying.
Yeah, that definitely feels I think easier to play into.
Yes.
Generally speaking, I do think it probably doesn't feel great to play against. But I do think that list is probably air quotes more fair and balanced, at least on paper. I do
make
think
a game of it.
You could make a game of it. I do feel like this is a little bit of the direction that Dark Troopers took us with armor skews and the text battle force effect that gives you Scout 2 basically means that the grenade ATSTs are firing at you pretty much no matter what on whatever deployment you're playing on turn 1. And a lot of times with multiple aim tokens from these crazy cool command cards. I think the command cards are sweet. I definitely think that this is an additive thing where we've got like 5 or 6 different factors kind of all combining into something that's really powerful. And this list is going to shoot people off the table by turn 3 in some games. Like it's just gonna do that.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think maybe if we're talking from a competitive level, this scares me way more than Double Dark Trooper ever did. Just from the amount of sheer wounds you have to put past armor to kill it.
Yeah,
take it off the table.
I think that makes this different from Dark. I think there's a couple things that make this different from Dark Troopers, both in its favor and not. I think the biggest thing in its favor with triple ATST, and particularly this version of it, is mobility.
Yeah, that's fair.
Between the Scout 2 and all of these free Speed 1 moves from Mark 1's command cards, like these ATSTs are going to be absolutely up in your face immediately.
You can't.
There's going to be very little that you can do about it. Yeah, and I think to me, it's not like inherently, like just having 3 ATSTs inherently is not that different from a counter perspective, in my opinion, than Double Dark Trooper, as far as like what you need to bring to handle that. But what really sends it over the top is that Scout 2 at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And the fact that ATSTs are just so much more mobile than Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
So,
and yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this conversation has centered around just how much damage they'll put out and how much you'll have to put out on them. But like, I think the conversation, like eventually maybe this podcast, but like surrounded around like the objectives, that if you get to choose your objectives, like, I don't know, man, there's some that you're going to be hard pressed to stop, like bombing run.
I'm not even sure this list falls into the I care about objectives very much camp from
I would agree.
It doesn't need to,
right?
But it also is fairly good at certain objectives.
It totally is. It definitely can be good at objectives.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not sure it needs to be.
Payload.
Well, it's not that dissimilar from Blizzard Force, where like the most effective historical version of Blizzard Force was Operative Vader and 4 bikes.
Yep.
And part of the reason for that was you could make a silly skewed objective deck. But a lot of times, like the objective deck didn't matter because the offense
Yeah.
and the speed on the list was so high that like you would just kill everything anyway. And this strikes me as similar, where with 3 ATSTs, like ATSTs are good at objectives. They're good at bombing run. They're good at breakthrough. They're good at KP.
Yep.
And like you can make an objective focused list for 3 ATSTs. But what really sends a list like that over the top is the fact that you don't actually need to interact with the objectives with something like this because you just kill everything. Yep. And that's part of what made Blizzard Force so uninteractive too, is it's like, any game where you're just like, well, I'm just going to ignore the objectives and kill everything. It's not that fun for either player, really.
No.
And that's my worry with this, is that that's what those triple ATST lists are going to turn into. Like, they actually are good at objectives, but they don't really have to be, because you can't score objectives with dead units. It doesn't matter what the objective is. So.
And that's kind of like that double ATST, double do back list that I was running for a while was the same way. Like, it just, I don't know. Good luck. I'm going to kill a lot of things. So this is, I think, worse, Yeah, I'm, yeah. And I guess what I was saying earlier about like them kind of taking away my childlike wonder for the Ewoks was that I think the Ewok Bright Tree Village Battle Force, the lists are not as directly apparent. I think, you know what I mean? I think there's some work you have to do to kind of like make those lists work and like figure out how they're going to run together and, and how things are going to work. And this one is just a much more direct, like exciting. I think people want to put, I think that was, I know where we landed on with Blizzard Force, but I think a lot of the things people were excited about was putting an ATST with 4 speeder bikes, right? Like that was a big excitement thing for some people. And I think this takes that to that next level, and it just becomes even more exciting because you're like, I can field 3 ATSTs, 2 speeder bikes in one list. Are you kidding me right now? Like, that's insane. I'm not saying it's good. It's just,
it's definitely good.
It is good, and it fits. It 100% fits like the armored cavalry theme.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this could have been done without the Scout 2 at the beginning of the game, and it would have been at least more similar to the Dark Troopers. Let's put it that way, from a counter perspective.
Yeah, I definitely think for me, just as someone who's like preparing for the meta and stuff like that, this really kind of pushes me over the you just have to be taking impact in every list. You can't, like, you can sort of try and fade one competitive list that's an armor skew, but this one's gonna be good, and based on like the hype that it's getting in the community presently, I think this is gonna be far more popular than Dark Troopers ever were.
Yeah,
personally,
100%. I mean, and the rate, really, the barrier is lower. Right?
Yep.
It's like there are a lot of people that have 2 ATSTs. You just need to buy another ATST. That's it.
You peasants. 2.
Right. I know that. I understand that you don't have to buy anything, Jay. There are a lot of people that already have 3 ATSTs.
3? That's it.
This guy over here is just playing Grand Army or something constantly.
Stupid Stormtide got me with all the happy, like we were.
You're
doing
welcome.
Yeah.
But yes, to your point, this is going to be extremely popular.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's and it's just like, it's so like clearly good. And I think the problem was, a part of it too is, okay, so there's this tournament coming up on Saturday. All this will be legal for it because they no longer have legality restrictions. And so I was going to bring Ewoks, and I was very excited about it, and I was painting them up. And the problem with that was, I was like, okay, if anybody brings Dark Troopers, I already know I'm going to struggle, and I'm going to have to find a way around that, right? But now it's, if anybody brings Dark Troopers, and probably 2 to 3 people are going to bring a version of this list, it's like, I don't stand it as an Ewok. You pick whatever Bright Tree version you want. it does not hold up against either of those lists very well.
And
by design, right? Apparently. So
I agree with your assessment. Jay, you should still play Ewoks.
I'm just gonna focus on the hobby, and I'm gonna play my ATSTs.
Yeah, I mean, look,
because I love them.
I just okay.
I love my ATSTs.
That's fair and
I
fine,
love
guess.
I love them all.
You put so much effort and hard work into those Ewoks. It would be a shame if they didn't hit the table. That's all I'm trying to say.
I want to see the pot with the human stew in it.
Yeah.
Stormtrooper stew.
Oh man, yeah, I've got them all like Stormtrooper helmets on spikes and stuff. Here's the thing. I think long term, so like I'm trying to think the next tournament I'll go to is maybe PAX or something, right? I'll probably play Ewoks there, like at a PAX or something like that, just because I really want to have them like fully painted, and like I want to go for like best painted army. That's like my whole goal with it. And so there's no way I'm gonna have them. I just barely got a prime on them, right? And so like they're not going to be even close to painted for Saturday. And so I think part of me is just like, well, I'm not going to have them painted. I really don't want to bring them out into the world until my babies are done and fully painted. And so I'm just like, but guess what I do have painted in together? 3 ATSTs. And
so I'm going to throw you both the curveball that we didn't talking about ahead of time, because
all right,
I enjoy doing that.
There we go.
I'm
ready.
So I would pose the following question, and this is not throwing shade at anybody or, whatever. But I think, so we now have had 2 solid releases that have heavily focused on the armor keyword. And I would pose the question, does armor need a rework? Does armor need to be looked at again? I guess the way I'm feeling about this is that I'm not entirely sure the problem is the units that are being released or the rules that are being released with them. It is more the binary nature of the armor keyword and how it restricts the setting of competitive play generally, and how just completely and utterly just like it's like an on-off switch. You can either deal with it or you can't. And now that we actually have units that are good that have the armor keyword, because let's be honest, as much as Jay doesn't want to admit it, armor units have not been good up until like the last
No, I agree.
AATs were pretty good for a while.
I would say that they were fine. They were you definitely could play a game against an AAT, and like the predominant strategy for dealing with armor prior to Dark Troopers and Tempest Force was you either had enough impact, like kind of by accident in your list where you could kill it, or you just ignored it. And both of those options were generally viable.
Well,
yeah, I think hang on, I want to
go.
jump in here real quick because I have a pet peeve about this perception.
Okay. Fire away.
I think the concept of quote unquote ignoring an armor unit is a little bit hyperbolic, because
Ignoring is probably the wrong word.
Right, but that's the one that gets said most of the time.
That's
and it gets
by me.
Well, by everybody. And it's like you're not actually ignoring it. You're not pretending it doesn't exist. You're just choosing to focus on other things instead of killing it.
Yes.
But that includes like managing its firepower by hiding from it when necessary.
Yes.
Working in its, minimum ranges and firing arcs.
Well, and I think
around it.
I think to qualify that too, when I say I can't speak for anybody else, but what I've noticed in the past when I'm running to, 1 or 2 heavies or up against 1 or 2 heavies is that the commitment to kill the heavy is 90% of the time not there. And so people take like onesie twosie shots and then get frustrated that nothing's happening, but they've just wasted a couple turns doing something very small, like throwing pebbles at an ATST, right? And so I guess when I'm saying ignored, I mean like either go and shoot it with everyone, or just don't shoot at it at all, because you're just wasting everybody's time.
If you never make the resilience check, it's like those actions never happened,
Exactly.
right? Like you wasted them completely.
But yeah, I guess I think a better way to frame that argument is you can choose to either commit to killing it, or you can choose to commit to not killing it, but you're never actually ignoring it, because it is still affecting the actions that you take.
Yes.
Ignoring it was definitely bad phrasing, and I apologize for that.
No, it's fine. I mean,
that's
the phrasing that everyone uses, so it's and that's why I have a pet peeve with it, is because it's common phrasing.
It's the right phrasing. Kyle's just a dork.
There you go.
Well, the connotation that it brings is that that unit doesn't matter, and it might as well not be on the table, and that's absolutely not the case.
They very much matter, for sure.
Yeah. It's just like, it's not like, let's put it this way, it is not like ignoring Jin.
Right. Well, I guess you're
throwing shade here. Keegan, my man, I am so sorry he said that.
I think on one side,
I'm also not wrong,
of the ball, you're ignoring it. So offensively, you're ignoring it because you're not attacking it. But defensively, you still need to like position properly so you're not dying, right?
You need to, at the very least, respect it.
And you have to figure out what your win condition is going to be in light of the fact that you're going to just kind of not be killing it, right?
Yeah, and
think about how that affects your objectives and all that. So,
and I think, and maybe this is a holdover, from us old hats playing, because I think too, in the old days, it wasn't like 2 or 3 or 4 armor, it was 1 generally, and you were going, okay, if I kill the rest of his army, or severely dwindle the rest of their army, that 1 heavy really isn't going to matter in this, and so I can work around that. But now, as that's stacking, that's just not really a thing anymore. So I can see why. I think it's just a holdover from the old days of like, just ignore it. It's fine.
To your original point, though, Mike, I've actually always had a problem with armor in Legion for 2 reasons. The first actually has nothing to do with the armor keyword, but simply like how displacement works. I hate displacement. It's time consuming.
So vehicle displacement.
Vehicles, it's time consuming. It feels bad to have it done to you. Like the fact that you can do it by accident to your own troops also feels bad when you're the one piloting the vehicles. It takes a lot of time. I just personally, I wish that there were, with respect to displacement, I get that like you need a way to make sure that you can't block vehicle movement with troopers. I wish that it was simply just like there was no suppression, and that there were basically no effects in the game that proactively incentivized you to displace something on purpose. And it was literally just like a mechanic to make it so that trooper units could move out of the way when a vehicle moved. So that's the first thing, is I've always hated how displacement works. And probably besides just the armor skew thing, the fact that this faction has so many free moves in it, and also an extra effect on displacement on one of its command cards, I don't like that it's like leaning further into, in my opinion, what has been one of the most problematic things in Legion since its creation.
So here's my argument. Okay, you're still going. Sorry. Kyle feels really
let the man cook
strongly.
Let the man cook.
So the second thing is just to your original point, Mike, and about the binary outcomes of like whether you can check that box about do I have enough impact or not. And if you look at how like other games, for example, World War II games, and it's been a while since I've played Flames of War, so I apologize. This is not how it currently works. But it's also been this way at various times in like Warhammer 40K's history. Basically, anytime you shoot a vehicle with a dedicated anti-tank weapon, you have a chance to completely eliminate the vehicle. Because it's essentially like, for example, Flames of War, you'd have like an armor value, say it's like 15 for like a heavy tank, and then your various weapons would have like anti-armor values, and then you could roll a dice and you'd add them up. And a normal rifle might be like a 1 with no chance of penetrating a heavy tank, but a tank destroyer or an anti-tank gun or something might be like a a 10, where, you know, if you roll a 5 or 6, you actually get to like penetrate it, and then you roll on like some damage table, and the vehicle could blow up, it could like lose a weapon, but like something's always going to happen if you exceed that threshold, basically. But as a result, those anti-tank weapons were also like a little more expensive, so that you'd have, you know, 1 or 2 in your list. That's still like binary, but it's in a way where if you have the counters even in small quantities in your list, it's like not a waste of time
Sure, it's
to attack the target,
you can still do the thing.
because you can still potentially get a result. Whereas with Legion, works with armor, you have a hit point threshold, and there's literally like no change in the unit's effectiveness until you get all the way up there, and it's going to usually take multiple shots of your impact weapons to get to that threshold. And I think that's what kind of creates this, like, when you finally have an armor skew that's actually effective, you have to have an impact skew, because it's not enough to just have impact weapons available to potentially deal with the vehicles. You have to have like a critical mass of impact weapons, so you can reach, you know, you can climb that mountain fast enough before they just kill you.
Yeah.
And the faster you can climb that mountain, the better your chance you're going to have. Whereas, you know, if you look at other games that have a similarly binary situation where like small arms don't hurt vehicles at all, it's more like if you shoot a vehicle with a rocket launcher or whatever, then you have a chance to completely destroy the vehicle. And I don't know if that's better or worse for balance. I personally, I think it makes it so that you lean less into skews, because, you know, you're checking the box with a lower threshold as far as like something that can actually get a result.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't mind a world where like you could take rocket launchers that were more expensive, but it was easier to kill the vehicles, and maybe that means the vehicles get to be cheaper, right? Because they're easier to kill, right? I don't know. But I definitely, as of late, I feel like we have kind of exposed one of kind of the base game mechanics that maybe needs another look.
Yeah.
You know, I know that they just did like a revisit on a lot of like mechanics and stuff. But as we kind of have progressed over the last 6 months or so, I'm strongly feeling like armor, the way the armor keyword interacts with how the game is played, I personally don't find very fun, or frankly very interesting. Like I don't know. Jay, as someone who's into the armor stuff, how do you feel about that?
So I think we've already have an answer built in that they've just never they don't use very frequently, which is the armor X keyword. And so like, you know, like why does an ATRT have armor? Why do dark troopers have armor? Like they should have armor X. And
Sure.
I think that would mitigate a lot of these issues. And what you could do is, instead of ATSTs just having blanket armor, maybe they have armor 4 or something. You know, maybe there's like a level at which we put a number attached to each armored unit, so that then you can start getting around it. I mean, 4 is a lot, but you know what I mean? Like, I think it's already built into the system. If for some reason that armor, just plain armor, has been thrown out on so many vehicles that and units that I don't think should have armor, just plain armor. I think they should have armor X. That never made any sense to me, especially like ATRTs.
Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent, like the armor keyword preceded what appears to be the conception of the armor X keyword, right? At least in the game's lifetime. That doesn't really like paint a reason for giving armor to like dark troopers or whatever. But like as far as why ATRTs have armor, they were the first armored unit in the game, right?
Sure, and that's like the least of our problems, right? Because they're just not great right now. And so like, but you could have moved forward. Okay, these are the legacy, they all have armor. Now everything's going to be armor X, and then it's going to be more reasonable to move through these items. You know, I really think you could, if you were going to redo it. I do like your idea, Kyle, but I also think you could just simply do it through armor X and just say, okay, ATSTs have armor whatever now, 3,
Yeah.
and this has armor 1, and you know, and this dark troopers have armor 1 or 2, or you know, and then you're just getting, now you can move on.
You could also have more weak points.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, one of the things, again, going back to, because I think Flames of War did vehicles pretty well, at least when I played it, is like it was a big deal as far as the difference between front armor and side armor and rear armor.
Yeah.
And for most armored units in Legion, like if they have a weak point, for the with the exception obviously of the Occupier and I think the Saber,
Yeah.
most armored units only have one weak point in one of their arcs, or you know, it's like weak point sides but not weak point rear. I think, you know, for most armored vehicles, I think you could reasonably like weak point one sides, weak point two rear.
Yeah.
And then that makes it so that like normal units that didn't even bring in powered weapons could still flank these units. And because if you look at, like, I know that Star Wars is sort of a like World War II in space, as far as like if you look at the original trilogy, as far as how the combat works, right? Like even a lot of the actual infantry weapons are literally just like reskinned World War II weapons. Yeah, right. MG42, like in World War II combat, it was actually like it was dangerous for tanks to get close to infantry,
right?
Because they could do all kinds of nasty things to tanks if they actually got close to them. So
sticky bombs,
right. But it would be like if every trooper unit in Legion had free impact grenades, basically. I know that you can like pay for impact grenades.
That's generally bad, folks.
It's generally bad. I even with,
maybe not now.
I still think it's probably not great.
Yeah, because you just don't. I mean, range 1 is just really short. But I guess the point is, like, it should feel rewarding to like flank vehicles. It should feel rewarding to flank something. And it doesn't feel rewarding to do that.
Don't
with
get them
anymore.
started.
So like, you know, at least make it so that it feels rewarding to flank vehicles. And I don't know.
I think you're right. And I think there's certain things, you know, look, I think the ATST only being weak point rear, you at the time you had the T-47 that could spin it around, right? And so then you could get it the weak point to face your army. You know, that happened to me a couple times in the beginning, of course, you know. And so we just don't have those kind of like plans anymore. So I agree with you. I think you could probably do both then. Like you could add more weak points and variations of the weak point, but then also give them an armor X. I think both of those, and then you could do an ATST armor 5 or 4, and then you could say weak points are 1 and rear is 2, and now you have more opportunities to reduce that number down.
Yeah, I think what my hope is that we see, I guess my fear and my concern with how the direction in which we're trending is that we are being faced with lists that provide, I'm hesitant to use this word, but I'm going to say it, like non-games of Legion, as opposed to, like, I think either of those solutions at least makes it so that you feel like you get to play a game. You still might be disadvantaged or whatever because somebody brought a skew, but I think right now the armor keyword is like strongly contributing to not only gatekeeping, but if you decided to take your chances and not take impact,
or even just like a medium amount of
impact, right? Or, you know, you tried to like hedge but not completely commit, you might be faced with a game that you are like 10% to win from deployment, you know. And that doesn't feel good.
It's not like Legion. I mean, Legion has had skews for most of its life, but most of the time it was a situation where, like, if you faced a skew that was disadvantageous for you, it was like, ooh, this is going to be a tough game, but I'm still going to like try and make a game of it. I still have a shot to do that. But with Dark Troopers and with potentially 3 ATSTs with these armor skews, it's just you show up to a table and you're like, oh, all right, well, I guess we could play this, but
I'm gonna go get lunch, man.
Right.
you know, like
and I think to go back to what I was talking about with the Ewoks was I was walking into it and go, okay, if I face Death Troopers, Like there's a turn where I have potentially 8
Sure.
impact, you know, with their one card, and I have an opportunity to take them out and do some shenanigans. But now when I know there's a potential of someone, I mean, I'm probably gonna be that someone, but you know, someone running 3 ATSTs, it's like, oh no, I won't even get one of these down. Like there's no way. And then
Yeah.
they'll just focus fire, you know, on my, if I'm running Chewbacca ATST, like that's gone. Like, you know, because they've got what, 8 potentially, or 4 to 5 potentially impact
There's
every, you know,
3
each.
impact on each one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I definitely think that the thing that we haven't really talked about in Tempest Force yet is that, unlike Dark Troopers, it definitely, the option to bring repair is on the table. You
Yeah.
know, you can take Stormtroopers with repair astromechs. You know, I don't know how many you can fit in the list that are viable. I mean, I guess just topically here,
I
assuming
think you
you're
can only
like,
get 2 core units, right? So it's
Let's
think-
let's build a 3 ATST list. Do you
I
wanna
mean,
build
I-
a 3 ATSTs?
all right. Yep.
yeah,
All
I
right,
think
let me I'll load it up and I'll share my screen here.
I think if you like drop an LTA, you can probably fit 3 astromechs in the list. You definitely can fit 2 pretty easily.
All right, let me.
And even 1 is more repair than Dark Troopers have access to.
Totally, and you
So-
know, I mean, I'm not even sure you really need the repair, but it's definitely like, you know, for the glorious event that it will be with the Ewoks, like hitting an ATST with the logs, like a repair droid or 2 is just gonna make that not matter, right?
Yeah, they can only do that one time.
Yes.
So, yeah. And then I guess Chewie can shoot stuff periodically, but other than that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you could even boop.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would probably be putting grenade launchers on the STs, I think, rather than mortars.
100%. Yeah, you need grenade launchers.
But
And probably the Hammer's pilot if you can afford it.
yeah, I think you can do. Did I put the elite armor pilot on here? Oh, it is the elite Hammer's armor pilot. Yeah, yeah, you can get pilots on both with two astromechs still.
Yeah, you might have to forego link targeting or
Yeah, if you cut LTA on one of them, you can.
Well, you got 3 astromechs there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So just cut an astromech and then.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think
or you could have 3.
Yeah. I don't know what is more valuable at this point, but you know, I mean, you definitely can take a list with 3 STs with reasonable configurations and also have 3 astromech droids in it too.
Yep.
Which is effectively taking your 33 health and jacking it up to 39, right?
Yep.
Before we're considering saves and stuff like that. So
Well, and that's the interesting thing about repair too, is repair is actually more valuable than raw health because repair is post saves.
yes.
So, you know, for example, for like a unit that has red saves, right, that's 50-50. Every point of repair is functionally like 2 health on average. You know, obviously you can blank rolls and stuff like that, but generally speaking, like you're going to need to put 2 shots through to do 1 wound, and then you can bring that 1 wound back after you've rolled a blank with the repair. So, you know, it's actually more than 2 health per astromech.
Yeah, it's more like 3 or 4, I suppose.
3,
yeah.
For an ATST anyway.
Yeah. You know, it seems strong. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see at Lone Star, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, Lone Stars this weekend. I think time will tell whether it's actually like that different from Dark Troopers. But even if it's like the same, that's still its own kind of problem, right? Because it will be vastly more popular, and then it'll just be in addition to.
You got enough lists there, Jay? Jeez.
Dude, I that's all I do. Build this.
I don't actually save my lists.
I don't either.
I save all of them because I forget them. So I came up with this one. I call it Space Jam. And what I did was I did 3 scout troopers with comms jammers. So you just scout them up 3 and you jam everything so they can't get orders, and then you just shoot it. And it still has 2 astromech droids in it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, I'm a grenade launcher guy myself.
You definitely want the grenade launchers, especially because the mortar launcher has a minimum range, and you're gonna get right up in your opponent's face.
Listen.
But
Jay likes he likes that suppressive keyword.
I know.
I do. I really do.
Yeah. I get it.
Well, and it's also a points thing too, right? Like it just depends on what you're trying to do, and you guys are right. Like if the ATSTs are the focus, then you're going to put the points into the grenade launcher. But if you're trying to do some other shenanigans, like the list I'm showing now has the scout troopers, comm jammers, you can almost hold the ATSTs back, and things aren't getting orders, and you're shooting them from back,
Can I
instead of
can I tweak your objective deck a little bit here?
Sure.
I think you definitely want payload instead of sabotage.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think generally speaking, I think the payload is definitely the fourth objective in all these Tempest Force lists.
Yeah.
Because you can block your opponent's payloads with the STs, and you're already going to be on top of them turn one, so your scouts and storms should be able to push your payload pretty easily.
Can you block them with STs? I know they can't move over terrain.
They can't move through, and I mean, like the distance that they can move. I don't know if you can like a block, but you definitely can block the placement of a base with an ST.
Yes,
and those ST bases are gigantic, and if you got 3 of them, like you can definitely block multiple lanes.
You can make it so that it can't go anywhere useful for sure.
Yeah. Whether or not it can go through them, I would have to look up, but I think that even if it was based against an ST base, I don't think it can move to the other side of it, if that makes sense.
Yep. An ST base is, I think it's about not quite 6 inches.
Yeah.
And then the speed to move tool is only 5. So yeah.
Yeah, this was the 3 ATSTs 2 speed list.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely could be good too. I don't know. There's definitely a couple different configurations for the triple STs. I definitely think for me, the third ST definitely, I think, puts it over the top. And I definitely like 2 STs is sort of manageable you can kind of like, unlike Dark Troopers,
yeah.
I think you can kind of like natty crit to maybe kill one of them. Killing half their STs is a big difference. Similarly to like the Dark Trooper stuff and like the extra, like when you kill one of 3 bikes, it feels a much bigger deal than killing 1 out of 4, right? And I think killing 1 out of 3 STs is very different than killing 1 out of 2.
I agree 100%.
I
mean, I think even if you hit the major, right, and you let's say you take him down, I'm gonna be a little less than half my deck is gonna be gone, my command hand, but I still am very capable of finishing this game with the rest of my cards and 2 ATSTs. Like it really isn't, a huge deal.
You still have a pretty formidable core left in place after taking that damage.
Yeah.
And I definitely, I don't know. I think them messing with the Force org stuff has been cool and fun for sure. I definitely, yeah.
I think we're starting to see situations where that concept can be pushed a little bit to the extreme in ways that are problematic.
Sure.
I mean, I yes, but I think I'm trying really hard to like make sure that I say nice things here. So I
think it like undoes the point when you actually say that out loud, but
I know,
we'll let this go.
You could edit that out.
Nope.
I think that you can do that while also maintaining the balanced state of the game, as long as you are making sure that you're like making points adjustments in response to those things. And
Yeah.
I would go as far as to say that like you could have speeder bikes cost a different amount of points in a Blizzard Force list than an Empire list.
Yes.
I think there are ways to make that acceptable and work that are unexplored presently, that would solve those problems while still allowing you to do the cool thing. There, I found it. I think I found it.
Yeah.
Was that acceptable?
Well, yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I think we've said this before, right? But I think the problem is their intention and the reality don't align. And from the beginning, they've made it clear that their intention with battle forces were they were never meant to be competitive. They were supposed to be thematic and fun. And I think when they first said that, we were all like, oh, that sounds great. But then when they allow them to be playable and competitive, it then squashes that first thing that you said, right? And the fact that you're not really balancing them for the competitive, like you said, I think like Battle Force specific points adjustments would be great. Like, and I think that would fix a lot of the like what we just saw with like the mass where they hit a generic card like choke, right? And it really was only I know Mike didn't like choke, but like it was really only a big problem in Blizzard, right? And you say, oh, you know what, for Blizzard Force it's 15 points or whatever now.
In fairness,
let's take vigilance, because that's a less controversial
all right,
example.
Well, hold up. I just to the force choke aspect. You could have nerfed it in the Shadow Collective Battle Force and in Blizzard, and I think that would have been A, reasonable, and B, it would have solved the problem.
Yeah.
Or you could have just increased Shadow Collective Maul and Darth Vader's points.
You could have potentially done that as well, for sure.
Yep.
I guess that's a bad example. But I guess is a maybe an example that I think is more relevant is like HRUs. They're a Battle Force specific, unit. They changed the points. It didn't mess with anything else because that's what it is. Also, just shout out to AMG, Major Marquand, cool. Continue doing Battle Force specific units.
I agree.
Love it. Like, please.
My only comment would be is to include it in the box for the ATST, but I mean,
whatever. I
would love to not have to print the cards myself, but
I would too. But
and if you'd love to print the cards, not print the cards yourself, you could sign up for our Patreon and I'll print them for you.
There you go.
I'm a little bit surprised they're not in there because there is an actual new ATST box, right? The Chewy ATST, and it also has Empire stuff in it.
That's correct.
Including, is it Weiss that's like pointing out? Yeah.
So
that's correct.
Did you actually does anybody actually have this box yet?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And these cards are definitely not in it.
They are not.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because that seems like that would be logical. It's the same release. It's the Ewok release. It is an ATST. It has Imperial stuff in it. That seems like that would be the place to put.
Seems like a home run, man. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it's like cards are cheap to print too. So it's like, oh, you got to put in 7 extra cards and maybe a sheet explaining. I think if I had to guess, right, I don't think it's a cost thing. I think what it is potential for confusion thing. And I think that if you get a casual player and you put the Tempest stuff in the ATST box, I think that could potentially confuse them as to what that is. So maybe there was a conversation to that, and maybe not a cost thing. But yeah, you would think it would make sense. Hey, I got brand new ATST coming out. Just put all these cards in there. That would have been great.
I mean, it's not really any different than like Logray and Wicked. Are they in the same box?
Yeah, they're in their same box, and they come with Chewy's card.
So Logray and Wicked are in the same box. You can use Wicked in a normal Rebel list. You cannot use Logray or ATST.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and it comes with Chewy's ATST card in their box as well. So that doesn't. I guess that would be confusing to a player as well. So yeah, you know what? that shut down that. I was giving them a little.
I mean, I'm sort of I'm pretty ambivalent on
On the cards.
the card front. I definitely it annoys me, but whatever, they can do what they want. I definitely have you guys bought a Shatterpoint box that's not a core set yet?
No, but I heard they had. You got a lot of cards in there. Let's put it that way.
Yo, they gave you duplicate cards for every
Yep.
card in the box in like 6 different languages.
Yep.
I literally I think my Kenobi pack, there's like I think there's 6 cards I'm going to use in it because there's only 6 cards in English, and there's like 30 to 35 cards in the box.
Yep.
And I guess I'm gonna throw the rest out. I don't know. If people want foreign language,
I mean, they would probably buy it anyway. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I mean, okay.
Maybe that's cheaper than doing a bunch of different language distributions
definitely
for different
easier.
areas. It's definitely easier.
It's definitely easier.
What I'm trying to say is that like it's obviously not a cost issue because
That is true.
yeah, like they definitely could have put those cards in the box. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think I'm happy we got this Battleforce. I think
Me too.
I'm sure. Yeah, you were probably more happy than most.
It was. I was so happy about Ewoks. It was definitely like. I don't know the word, but it definitely changed my course of my whole like.
Buzzkill.
Maybe a buzzkill on Ewoks. Yeah, for sure. Though still excited about Legion, right? So that's good. That's a positive. Less excited about Ewoks than I was. I was super hyped, and now I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's cool. Let me get my ATSTs off the shelf.
Yeah, I don't really. Do Rebel players still exist? Are they like a thing in this game? And
Evan's trying real hard.
Okay, I just like I haven't actually talked to anyone that I feel like mainlines Rebels anymore.
Ryan Stabcast Ryan.
I'm interested to know how they feel about this, because like not that Ewoks were going to be like the saving grace of the Rebel faction or anything, but
Rebels finally get like a big, interesting release with a bunch of exciting units and new miniatures, and it's immediately on the same day hard countered by the Empire counterpart.
It's like when you buy a same day. This is before Ewoks are technically street legal.
Yeah.
It's like when you're in a neighborhood and you buy a brand new car and you're like really happy, and it's just like some sort of SUV, and then your neighbor like goes and buys like a Mustang, and it's like.
And it's already in the driveway.
Yeah. And yours is coming in like a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey Bob, look at my new.
Hey, did you hear I'm buying a new? What is that? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm torn for sure, because as an Empire ATST player, this is the best thing that could have ever happened. But also, I was definitely jazzed about Ewoks, and that this kind of took the edge off of that, which was upsetting a little bit. I'm trying to work through it. I think if I just get this one tournament game, I'll just go play these 3 ATSTs just to play them, because I feel like I'm required to, and then after that I can get back to the Ewoks safely.
I think you should. You know, you like armor. I definitely think you should enjoy this while you've got it, because I feel pretty confident in saying this is gonna get nerfed.
Yeah,
it will eventually get nerfed. I don't know what that looks like. It will, maybe nerf's the wrong word. It will eventually be changed. I don't know what it's gonna look like.
Yeah,
but this is definitely not how it's gonna look forever. I feel like I can say that with 100% certainty.
I felt pretty good playing operative Vader Blizzard Force, that my time was limited.
Yes.
And I think if you're running triple ATST Tempest Force, then what you're saying is you probably can feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel like I don't even have to play a game against it to know that.
Do I get to every tournament that I take it to? Can I be like Kyle and be like, I'm only playing this because I want them to nerf it? Can I do
pure
that?
pure altruism.
Only if
It's
you're
not 'cause I
willing
like
to accept that
ATSTs.
you are lying to your friends and community every time you say it.
Every podcast, I'm fine with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Only if you understand it, only if that's the
Yeah.
understanding you go in
See,
with,
see, the
and
problem,
you're willing
Jay,
to
is
admit it.
you have a very public history of loving ATSTs, whereas
Yeah.
I had no prior history of just inherently loving
No, I hear you. I hear what you're
speeder
saying.
bikes or Darth Vader. So
All I can hear is triple
least publicly.
ATST.
it's all about plausible deniability, Jay.
Yeah. It's just interesting, and I think the way I'm gonna try to enjoy it is just going full ham and like probably doing that list that I showed you guys with the 3 ATSTs and 2 speeder bikes. Just I know it's ridiculous and I know it's not the most like the best version of that list, but it just seems fun. So
I mean, it may be. It very well could be the best version of that list. I think that point is up for debate.
It seems like, I mean, honestly, like we've been focusing a lot on the 3 ATSTs. There are plenty of versions of Tempest Force that involve 1 or 2 or 0 ATSTs that also look super interesting and competitive.
yes.
I definitely think like 6 snipers plus an ATST is also probably might be good. I don't know.
Yeah,
Dude, it's not even the snipers, it's the fact that they're tossing like 10 black dice at range 2.
Once they get there, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Which isn't hard with Scout 3.
I agree, but I do think that the command cards are definitely heavily incentivizing you to build this in a different way.
Yeah, of course.
But you can also do like you can do, I think this is a thing, 4 snipers, 3 bikes, and an ATST. Let me see if that's a thing.
Well,
like
you got to throw in at least 1 core naked core in there.
I know.
Yeah, I guess at that point though, like, are you better just taking like a normal Empire list with like a character that has command cards?
Maybe. I mean, you can't take the 4 snipers in that list, but
sure.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, officer, Marquand, 1 unit of naked storms, 4 scout troopers with the sniper, and 3 speeder bikes is 798.
Yeah.
I guess so you've got 4 snipers, you got 3 speeder bikes, and you got 1 ATST, and it's 10 activations.
It's definitely like a playable. Like, I think you could definitely take it to a tournament and win games, but it doesn't immediately jump off the page. It's like, this is busted.
Yeah.
No, right.
Yeah.
I think sort of like Blizzard, there's going to be 1 to 2 like obviously very good versions of Tempest Force, and there's going to be a bunch of other ones that are also pretty good, but they just get kind of overshadowed by it.
Well, and I think that there's like in that example, right? Like a triple ATST double bike list would eat that list's lunch.
Probably.
Yeah.
So like adjusted mirror matches would become a real problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's going to be good against everything except 3 TSDs.
Yeah.
I certainly can no longer play 501st into this armor meta. I don't think.
No.
Even if I take saber throw, I don't think it's really so.
I don't think it's gonna be enough.
I think I could put saber throw on Anakin, and I think I could take multiple barks with or RTs with laser cannons and not have enough to deal with this situation. It's not enough. Ain't it?
Yeah.
I'm out, folks. Sorry, you had your like 2 or 3 podcasts on 501st. I'm done. I'm retired.
Thank God we don't need to talk about clones anymore. Boy, every time we talk about clones on this podcast, I just zone out.
In fairness, I do think clones are still in probably the best place to deal with all this stuff. They're just not 501st lists.
Yeah, like a typical Anakin clones list probably is going to be in a better spot.
Yeah.
Or some other options probably, but clones, the point is clones have red saves and they have pretty good options for impact. So
yeah, if you want to fade ATSD shots, clones are the way to go for sure. Or heavies in general, any large dice pool, the answer is clones.
The answer is always clones.
No. Clones.
We need a soundbite of that.
All right.
I mean, there is an Alex Davies soundbite of
I
it
know.
somewhere.
Yeah, it's on a stream.
Yeah.
I think it's on the previous stream where they first played clones and clones against droids in the core set. Anyway, all right. Well, Lone Star opens this weekend, but it's already very late, and we talked a lot. So
Kyle is fading fast.
well, and honestly, I don't know what else to say about Lone Star Open except that it's going to be exciting, and it's this weekend.
Yep.
I am very interested to see what the meta shakes out to be. To all of you out there who are going to raise your Ewok flag high and proud, I salute you. I hope you are ready to die.
I would never do well under torture. Look how easily I just switched teams. I was just like, no.
Yeah. You've been talking about Ewoks like every podcast
Yeah.
for the last 2 months.
Like,
And then
what?
three ATSTs, and it's like, yeah, right.
It's that meme with the guy where he's got his girlfriend on his arm and he's looking at the other girl. Yeah.
I mean, Lone Star is the tournament that's like known for people taking heavies, right?
Yes.
You know,
the Texas meta not reportedly, this is what's happened at the last two Lone Star Opens, is very armor heavy already. Like just sort of under normal circumstances, even when armor was bad. So
fantastic.
And in addition to that, like unlike Ewoks, there's a reasonable amount of queue time for you to buy your third ATST and like get a table ready before Lone
Don't
Star.
buy one of the new ones. Buy one of the old ones. They're easy to put together. The new one's 1 billion pieces. 1 billion.
Do you have a new one assembled, Jay?
Not assembled, but I have it on the sprues.
Oh, okay.
No, it's a lot. It's intense.
I definitely would love to see a side-by-side comparison when we
yeah. Well, maybe I'll try to put one together for this weekend's tournament.
Sounds like you're gonna do that anyways. So
I mean, I definitely need a 7th ATST.
you could do Grand Army with 6 ATSTs.
In fairness, it sounds like you've already made the decision. Considering.
Oh no, that's very clear. That is my decision. I'm not even looking back.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you guys, I don't even care. I'm running 3 ATSTs and 2 speeder bikes just because I can.
Yeah. I think there's a strong possibility you can take down a tournament with that.
I might get my world's invite.
You very well could. I think there's going to be the potential for several people to win a world's invite this weekend with Tempest Force.
Yeah, Lone Star is the first. So you're going to a store tournament.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Lone Star is the first U.S. World's Open qualifier. Is that what it's called?
Sure.
I think
sounds right.
Anyway.
Something weird.
It's the one that has flights, and then it also has 4 invites. So
Yeah.
Going to be very exciting to see how that shakes out.
And
I believe Yavin Base is streaming, right?
Yes.
David's streaming.
David is streaming it. Yep.
So it'll be on stream.
And
Twitch,
I believe that's going to be on his YouTube because I don't think
not
he's
on
streaming on Twitch anymore.
Okay.
Good.
I just
I'm glad he finally listened to me. Like I've been telling him for years to stop streaming on Twitch.
I don't know. I enjoy it. Twitch has a much better community tools, in my opinion.
Listen, I agree, but YouTube has a much easier reach. Like try to explain to somebody, that's trying to watch their husband play at one of these things. Try to explain Twitch to them.
Yeah,
that's or feel like, no, you just go to YouTube. They're like, oh yeah, I use YouTube all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely youtube.com/@YavinBase, I think is how that works. So
awesome.
I'm sure he'll be live. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. If not, it's twitch.tv/YavinBase, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna stream it.
If you're listening to this, there's a solid chance you know how to get to David's content.
That's also
that's
true. That's fair. I just I just want to make sure that we
our boy D Money. We gotta share the love.
Yeah.
Yep. So tune in.
And
I'm sure you'll get a chance to see Kyle.
Watch Kyle get stomped by some ATSTs. I'm looking forward.
You know what?
To that.
I changed my list today. I submitted my list 2 weeks ago, and I changed it in the last hour.
Did you change factions?
Maybe. Possible. I changed. Let me put it this way. I changed to something that I already have fully painted.
All right.
Okay, so you change factions. Cool.
Look, I have 5 fully painted factions, so that doesn't really narrow it down.
I bet you I could guess, but I won't. But I bet you I could.
I have
You know, who cares? This is going out tomorrow. Let's start do it at 6 a.m. I changed to Anakin clones.
See?
Yeah. Originally, I was going to play Callus, Boba, Iden. And then Tempest Force happened, and I'm like, can I actually handle 3 ATSTs with this list?
No.
And I think the answer is like maybe, because Marksman does help quite a bit there.
Marksman's pretty huge, yeah.
But it's also like a fairly squishy list when you think about it. Like
you're in like one of those games with how close the STs are, they're just gonna like get a hold of one of your characters and it's just gonna be gone.
Yeah,
right. And then when one of those characters dies, like the list kind of falls apart a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's probably gonna be Boba because he always ends up being like a glass cannon, you know.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, I switched to Anakin clones. I got the RPS, I got Saber Throw. I have some other impact stuff in there. I've got lots of ways to get dodges, and I have red saves. So
did you end up on pikes or no?
Yeah, it's 2 pikes, a capo.
Pikes are good.
Phase 2, phase 1, 2 phase 1s actually, and then Echo and Anakin.
And also,
welcome to the dark side.
Look, I play. Okay, for the record, I think I was one of the. I played Anakin Padme back in 2021.
Yeah.
No, 2022 at Adepticon. So it's not like new to me, put it that way.
No, you just left it for something hotter, you know.
Yeah, I was the guy in that pick, and Blizzard Force was the hot girl that just walked past me, you know. Yeah. And now I'm crawling back.
Please take me back,
she left me.
No.
Yeah, I would almost, so maybe for Rebel players looking for, I don't know if it's a direct counter, but something that could hold up. We've talked about it on this podcast a few times, but like a Cassian K2 vets and vets and pikes lists wouldn't be terrible. Impact, critical. You got some Pierce in there. I think you got enough, and it's like 12 activations, so you could hold up.
This is gonna sound weird, but I think Rebel players like have to take FD cannons now.
I definitely think
with the impact generator.
I think Echo Base is actually primed to potentially, between airspeeders and the FD cannons. Like, I actually think airspeeders are pretty good against Tempest.
Yeah,
frankly.
I agree.
Just because, I mean, like, I don't know.
They are until they aren't.
You definitely have to out-activate them, but but one of the things with the Tempest Force, one of the significant limitations with them is that they are pretty much an 8 activation list with no way to pump up their activation count if they're playing 3 ATSDs. So I think one of the things with it is that if you're playing a 10 or 11 activation with double airspeeders that has like pretty good order control, like getting your airspeeders in last on turn 1 after all the STs have gone, just like melting one to like half health or its resilience or whatever, and then just immediately going with the airspeeders and getting them out of there before you're going to get hit by at least one ATST probably, but it shouldn't kill you. And so you can probably do 2 strafing runs and maybe trade 2 for 1, like 2 ATSTs for 1 airspeeder, which at that point I think you're feeling pretty good. And if you got FD cannons to back that up, like I think you're feeling pretty good. And I also think it's pretty good against darks in that you can kind of do the same sort of thing. The activation count is not as good, but darks are way less good at shooting airspeeders. So
and they're not good at shooting FDs either.
No. So. I mean, obviously you're not loving your matchups against the rest of the non-armor field, I think, but
I normally, yes, I agree with you on all those points. And I think probably I would be a little more scared with like the old double ATST list. I think that some of the benefits that these command cards bring with the standbys and aims and stuff is going to be a little bit more helpful for it.
Standby does not require your target to be in arc. So
yeah.
No, it does not. Yeah.
Yeah.
The command cards, I definitely feel like are a significant factor in why this list is turned up to 11. I feel like you could take one of these components. Similarly with Blizzard, like you can take like one of the components out, and then all of a sudden it's just like a lot less good.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like an exponential curve sort of situation.
So I would, for a counter, like if you're gonna go with the air speeders, I recommend putting them as far in the corner as you can, and just holding them, because with that scout too, and a lot of the movement that that you can do with this list, like there's a potential like triple ATSTs could be on you before you even get to activate anyways. So you're gonna have to be real careful.
I actually think, as long as we're handing out advice like that,
Yeah.
I don't think that's an unreasonable deployment strategy for most lists against Tempest Force.
Yeah, just hide, get in the corner and hunker down. Yeah.
Is to stretch out how long it takes them to get you and deploy farther back than you normally would. It's going to set you behind a turn or two on objectives, and you need to be cognizant of the fact that you're going to need to probably prioritize moving, particularly maybe earlier in the late game than you normally would. But I do think that is a viable. The real thing is you want to take the turn one shooting off the table against this list.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you might actually have a fighting chance if you're like a little bit more limited on impact. Just because, if you make it so that they can't shoot you, particularly with the blast gun, like the 6-die gun is kind of whatever if you have cover. Like, if you're playing Rebels or something, like you might lose a couple.
It still
troopers.
hurts.
It still hurts, but if you're playing Storms or Clones or even B1s, you're like, oh, all right, I lost 2 B1s to this ATST shot, like whatever. But as soon as blast enters the equation, it gets significantly more scary.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely think making sure that you're able to stay. Basically, you've got to be almost range 4 away from them where they deploy.
3 and 3/4.
3 and some change. Yeah. So
which is going to be pretty difficult on most deployments where you've got a scout 2 move with an ATST base.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to deploy back.
Right. I think the only deployments where that's even possible is Long March, major offensive, advanced positions, I think.
Yeah, and I think that there's a question to be had of, is it worth bidding just to make sure that they can't get the deployments where that is a thing that they can do. I don't know how much these Tempest Force lists are going to end up bidding, because
not much.
I really don't think they care a ton about the objectives. I think that I think they care about the deployments a lot.
Yep.
I think you can get a bid, based on what I like. So the one I had with the bikes too, that was straight 800, but I definitely had a couple that were like the 780s, so you could bid with each Y. I want everything I want, and then I'm just going to murder. It's just a murder machine. That's all. Murder.
Major murder.
Yep.
All right, Kyle's ready for bed. Let's wrap this puppy up.
It's 11:30.
he's practically sleeping already.
Just deal with it. All right, we're dealing with it. You deal with it. Talking about Legion, it's your favorite thing to talk about. What?
It is.
All right.
We've just been doing it for 2 hours.
There you go.
We've just been doing it for 5 years, my man.
Yeah. It's true. And I'm still excited to show up to this podcast every Monday and talk about it. But
at least one of us is.
Hey, I am reinvigorated. So
all right,
we can call it 2.
2. Yeah, we got him. We got 2.
It's more than 50%. That's a C+, really.
Yeah. That is the 2 ATSTs that you need alive in order to win the game.
It's at least as good as Major Marquand's 1 pip.
Yep. Perfect.
All right. We're the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Stay cool, Fruit Mat. Are you guys ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
I'm always ready.
All right.
You know what? Let me pee first.
You son of.
Before you hit record.
I already hit record.
You did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. But go Pete. We're gonna be here an hour.
Well,
Go-
welcome to
go-
the outtakes, Kyle.
Yeah.
Did I leave the mic on so you can hear?
Yeah, take it with you.